The race in Hungary has always been super exciting to watch. And guess what? The weather might make this weekend even crazier. Could we see another awesome race? The two McLaren drivers are fighting each other more and more each week, even though it looks like other teams have just given up. When you think it might rain during a race, anything can happen. So, what are the biggest stories we're going to see happen in Hungary? And who's going to win? Let's talk about the weather first. You probably already know how important rain is here because we saw how crazy things got in Belgium. Unlike Belgium, the weather report for a rainy weekend here doesn't look that likely, but it's the same pattern for the whole weekend. We think it'll be dry except on Sunday when there's a much higher chance of rain. Now what this means is that the teams will have the same problem they had in Belgium. Should you change your car setup for the rain that might come on Sunday and think about the big picture? You'd probably say yes because that's when you get points, right? Well, let me remind you of something. The race officials didn't let anyone race in the rain in Belgium. Yes, it was pouring rain at first, but when it started to get drier, the race boss decided to wait until it was almost completely dry. This meant that for about the first half of the race, the cars set up for rain were just sitting there like slow ducks. And that's something you don't want to happen here in Hungary. Even though the car setups are naturally different here than they were in Belgium, it's still a choice that teams have to make. They have to hope that the race boss won't make the same decisions he made in Belgium. But still, the teams are ready to hit the track. Even though no big car improvements are expected, it's not going to be boring. They rebuilt the whole main straight and the grandstands, which will make this weekend even more amazing to watch. The top favorites are McLaren, and it's not even close. The fact that some teams have already stopped working on their 2025 cars shows that the McLaren team might already be celebrating winning the team championship. Even so, we have a lot to think about with the fight happening between Piastri and Norris. This fight had a very interesting twist at this same place last year. McLaren messed up the strategy for Piastri, but then asked Norris to let his teammate go ahead. They said he was the teammate and he'd need him for the championship fight later. Well, forget about that this year because these two are fighting neck and neck just like Mercedes did back in 2016. The only difference is that Lando tends to mess up when the pressure is really high. We saw a couple of big mistakes in Belgium while he was chasing Piastri. Now that the championship gap is 16 points, he can't let similar stuff happen to him if he wants to stay ahead of his teammate. Zak Brown is the one who talked about the championship fight that's happening between his two drivers. Even though this is the perfect situation for every team to have, it's still a headache that needs to be handled properly. Talking more about this before the Hungarian race, Brown said, "Both of our drivers are doing great because they're winning a lot and getting first and second place. I think Oscar was a little upset with his qualifying in Belgium. Lando was very happy. I'm sure he's a bit bummed he didn't win, but he's coming off 2 wins in a row. I think it's going to be a coin flip every weekend. Oscar is like a machine, and what's cool is how aggressive he is, but he always brings the car home safely. Norris will come into this weekend with bigger momentum, though, since he's been on the podium 3 times out of the last 4 races. And while this is the main story we're going to see happen in Hungary, let's not forget about the guy who often comes between these two. Just like in the old days when he used to come between Bottas and Hamilton. Max Verstappen. The Dutch driver is sure that he's out of the championship fight, despite all the positive words coming from Helmut Marko. But that doesn't mean he won't drive every single bit of speed out of the car that he's given week after week. That's not something that Zak Brown believes. Even though he knows his team is the clear favorite going into every race weekend for the rest of the season, he understands how important the Verstappen factor is. Yes, the lead is now more than 80 points ahead of Piastri. From this point, I don't think you can put the Dutch driver in the group of championship contenders unless something crazy happens. But at the end of the day, he can be an outside factor that will steal points away from either Norris or Piastri by getting between them in the race. Talking more about this, Brown said, I think it's too early to count out Verstappen from the title race. It's looking good, but Max, there's a lot of racing left to do. We've got a nice gap, but I wouldn't say we're there yet. We've all been around this sport too long. To start celebrating before you cross the finish line is a very dangerous thing to do. But the limits are there, and you can't hide them. This means that Red Bull will now most likely focus on 26. And just let Verstappen accept that he'll have to go back to number 33 starting next year. The good news is that he will stay with the team. So we're going to this race knowing that he and Russell will likely stay in their own teams and won't cause any big drama with some crazy decisions that might not be good for many fans. Even so, Verstappen believes that Red Bull should keep working on the car in 2025 and maybe bring more improvements. Because if you look at the big picture, a lot of these cars will carry over to the next ones. Maybe not the actual parts, but learning about how the air flows around the car and how it works with he car will definitely help with the new cars in 2026. Talking more about this, Verstappen said, "No, I think it's still important to develop the 2025 car, because you'll learn certain things and they will always have an effect on next year. The cars will be completely different, but there are still things we can work on and take to next year. So, of course, we're thinking about engineering and car design for next year, but we can still learn a lot about this year." But then again, we come to probably the biggest disappointment in 25. Ferrari. The Italian team got everyone's hopes up so high only for them to end up as huge failures when it comes to setting up the car where it needs to be. The only thing left for them to fight for is second place in the team championship, which Red Bull and Mercedes will probably fight for instead. However, they won't be making changes to the leadership, and the only thing worth mentioning here is that reports from Italy say that the team has already given up on developing the 2025 car. It might be a good thing because Hamilton has been asking for this to happen for a very long time, but once again, Ferrari has shown that some serious changes need to be made inside the team if they want to be seen as championship competitors. That doesn't change the fact that this is one of Hamilton's favorite tracks to race on. In his career, he's won here 8 times and started from the front 9 times. There have only been 2 times when he hasn't led a lap in this race. In 2010, when his car broke down, and in 2010, when after starting from the front, he lost a lot of positions and couldn't get them back. That technically doesn't count as not leading a lap, though. But with how Ferrari is positioned now, I don't think you should expect a lot from them this weekend. Maybe a podium if something goes wrong with Verstappen and Red Bull. And who knows, if the McLarens have to fight each other, maybe Ferrari could take advantage of that too. Mercedes is also set up to do really well here because of the weather conditions on Sunday. When the temperatures are a bit cooler on the track, their car suddenly comes alive. However, even though they're going to keep developing the car throughout this season, hopes that they will do something amazingly well are out the window. Their hope is for 26 and the new rules. And I don't blame them. You have an amazing engine program and 2 really good young drivers who are ready to bring the championship home for the first time since 2020 in the Drivers' Championship and 21 in the Team Championship. With all of this in mind, which story are you most excited about before the Hungarian race? And more importantly, who do you think will win between Norris and Piastri in the fight for first place? Let us know in the comments below. And once you do that, make sure to click on the video that's appearing on your screen right now.